Hello everyone, this is Many Ninjas here. Before we kind of get the rest of the video in proper motion here, it's worth noting that as you can kind of see from the shipping box I got for this particular bootleg, which is the Future Trunks 2.0 figure, things aren't exactly off to a good start in terms of how the package has actually been shipped to me. Normally when things are described as no box, especially on eBay auctions, they usually mean that while the actual cardboard part is missing, they at least send it in its original clamshell, which usually gets a little crushed there, but it still protects the figure a little more during its shipping process. As you can see, I didn't even get that much on this particular one, so yeah, I'll have to reconsider using this particular seller again in the future. But that being said, once I get this figure kind of put back together, I still feel most of the comments I'm going to have on this particular one will still apply, because aside from a few extra paint scuffs here and there, just because of the lack of true protection on them, a lot of the issues and quirks that I noticed on one still seem to apply, as I kind of did some extra research on the side of other photos of this particular bootleg, and they still seem to match up fairly well. So most of my criticisms on this one I feel will still be applicable even if you get this shipped to you in a more standard format, in a proper clamshell or in a proper box. So without much ado, let's get the rest of the review underway. Once we managed to get Trunks reassembled, which, just for the record, involved me having to literally take a little X-Acto knife to expand the opening on the lower torso, which is kind of made out of a weird rubbery material, I should say. It's worth noting that Trunks stands at roughly about 5 3/4 inches tall, so just a little under 6 inches with the Super Saiyan haircut in this case. It comes with a normal head as well, just for reference on that one. And for my articulation test, it's worth noting that the joints are literally all over the place. In terms of the head and neck, they're functional, if a little loose. I would say the shoulder joints, the butterfly joints, are also working, a little loose as well, but the actual arms themselves at the arm swivel, as you can see, there is nothing really holding them in place. Technically, they're not damaged whatsoever, it's just incredibly loose to the point of falling out. As you can imagine as well, he has 2 right hands, by the way. He doesn't have a proper set of fists. The ab crunch is pretty much unusable for reasons explained. The hips, especially the 3-point articulation there, yeah, those are loose as hell. They really can't hold their pose very well, so good luck with that. You have to fix that up. Knees are actually surprisingly good on that one, on both legs, which is, honestly, given the rest of the quality, is jaw-dropping. And the ankles, not really movable that much, and the toes are technically functional, if not a little bit tight, which, considering the rest of the figure, is actually outright surprising on there. Suffice to say, this, I can't call it a breakdown if it's falling apart on its own already, folks. Oh, I don't have the original figure with me on hand, but I'm gonna safely assume those are the wrong elbows, by the way, and the wrist joints are very, very snug. As we move on to the accessories here, once again, things are kind of both good and bad going on here. In terms of what it's included there, it seems to have all the basic stuff on there, but that doesn't say very much because they're not very well handled in a lot of cases. Namely, as you can see here with me struggling to get the hair part for the normal head, it's basically jammed in there right out of the box, but I don't have the box, but suffice to say, it's an incredibly tight fit. And you see me struggling with there for a while because it's almost like there was some adhesive holding this together, like they didn't trust this thing to survive during shipping. Mind you, once I was able to finally break the seal that was going on there, it comes on and off easily enough and fits as it's supposed to, so at least thankfully that's not too much of a trouble. Now, in terms of the faces and the decals on them, aside from a little bit of blemishes around the mouths in some cases, the actual decals themselves are pretty well done, I'm not gonna lie. I don't have the original here to immediately compare it to, but once I do, I'll do a little update video. But for the moment being, honestly, it's at least presentable enough. The faces, I have no problem with. They all seem to come on and off without too much issue, and you can swap them in and out. The hands, I have less positive things to say about the hands. The hands themselves have not been casted in a particularly good fashion. You definitely have a lot of mold lines on them, and frankly the hands, I feel like they're misshapen and just should have had a little more time in order to put them out properly. The extra little hair bit, much like the rest of the Super Saiyan head in general, it's technically functional, but it's a very soft casting of it, and it's a very messy casting. Although I will at least say that it does fit in there just fine, and it doesn't come all loose there. It's not slipping off at any point. It's just, I wish it was handled a little better on that one. Especially the hair in general. As you can see, even if you didn't get the scratches from the poor shipping, it's still a very messy job. Sorry to say. Now, for the sword and scabbard, it's casted in one bit in this case, unfortunately. I figure normally this thing has the bottom pommel section usually comes off, so you can fit that in the various hands a lot better, especially the closed sword holding ones, but that's not the case here. It's one solid bit and has a lot of molding issues and kind of paint issues going on there. Now for the scabbard. The scabbard itself is one solid bit, doesn't hold the sword very well. It's actually quite loose in there when you put it in there. And in terms of the belt bit, disregard me putting it backwards during that bit of footage. I do get it in there correctly. The scabbard, or the belt itself, is surprisingly flexible, but the tabs are the wrong size. I actually have to sand them down in order to get them to fit in here, and make this particular bit of montage footage work. And as you can see on the sword itself, it's got a very speckled finish. Now, how do the hands, I should say, fit onto the wrist pegs? The short answer is, they don't without help. A lot of the hands actually just outright didn't fit on there without me having to manually fix them with a small little screwdriver in order to, or not a screwdriver, a drill bit I should say, in order to make them actually fit on there. So I believe I was using a 2.5 millimeter drill bit in order to get them to work on there. And of course there's a small matter of getting the arms back onto the body. So yeah, this figure is honestly a fixer-up in most cases. Now, as we see me struggling to get this thing to stand because the legs are nonsense. Here we have a little bit of footage with the sword in hand. Once you do manage to fix it in there, it does work, but as you can kind of see, you see me struggling this whole video just to get this figure to work around, and that's because it's an absolute fixer-upper. As you can probably imagine, I do not recommend picking up this particular bootleg. Even if the original release does happen to have a few different quality control issues of its own going on, to my understanding, it is still going to be in a much nicer shape as compared to this rather haphazard clone release, which was falling apart in the non-existent box that it came in. So yeah, spend a few more dollars and get the real deal on this one, folks. Now, talking about things which are a little less haphazard, hopefully you'll join me next time, which we'll be looking at the first of two different releases from the Black Hole group, covering Motorcycle Girl and Son of Ghost. Catch y'all later.